The Last of Us. One of my favorite games ever played on PlayStation. And seeing it realized in live action by the creator, Neil Druckmann, on the dominant network streaming service is a dream come true. All the stars align for this project, and I'll go out on a limb and say that this has never happened before. I must start with Joel. Joel is a character that isn't complicated, but I do feel he is misunderstood and misrepresented by fans of the game. Be that as it may, he's a brutal, merciless, pain-providing parental patron of Ellie. He's wise, hard-headed, and the man you want on your team when you have to get from one place to another.
I believe him. No!
Pedro Pascal was an excellent choice for the role. When I first saw it, I thought, this is strange, but I believed in HBO. And ultimately, he's a bright spot on the show. He's a pill-popping hard-ass that won't let you get over on him. He's bitter, sour, and even looks like he smells a little bit. But you also see the pain in Pedro's eyes.
I have to leave her. Joe, I mean, it's why you took off on me, right? To make up for the things we did. Well, here's your chance.
My favorite scene of this show, which led me to believe that they understood Last of Us, was when Joel says, "You'll be silent."
Not quiet. Silent.
Anybody who's a fan of the show knows there's no better way to sum up Last of Us. This is what it's all about. That was a very nuanced and knowledgeable synapse of the situation. Ultimately, one issue I have with the show is that they feel the need for exposition.
True, fungi cannot survive if its host's internal temperature is over 94 degrees. And currently there are no reasons for fungi to evolve to be able to withstand higher temperatures. But what if that were to change? What if...
Best guess. Cordyceps mutated. Some of it got into the food supply. Probably a basic ingredient like flour or sugar.
And I think it might be because the series is so short. In the first episode, you cover Joel's past, Ellie's present, and the future of the show. This takes considerably more time in the game, and ultimately, I believe that this is one of the weaknesses of the show. This could have been a 12-part series with multiple seasons. It looks as though it'll be only 2. Even when you look at the basic components of the game itself is almost as long as all the seasons of Game of Thrones. I can't figure out why the show must move at breakneck speeds. The biggest complaint I have about Joel's portrayal is they turned him into a character with severe PTSD, making him emotionally unstable. Joel is really one of the last frontiers of modern masculinity on television. And I know that that's a hot topic in mainstream media right now. The reality is, if he had an emotional breakdown every time he killed an infected, they wouldn't get very far.
This is how you gonna repay me, huh?
Repay you?
For all those goddamn years I took care of us.
Took care. That's what you call it? I got nothing but nightmares from those years.
You survived because of me.
It wasn't worth it?
I bring you the cure from mankind, and you wanna play the pissy little brother.
Just know that when I wake up, I've lost something. I'm failing in my sleep. It's all I do. It's all I've ever done. It's failure. Again and again. You want me to take her? I'm just gonna get her killed, I know it. I know it.
He needs to be who he is in the game, which is a hard ass with a clear direction, straightforward. The show is beautifully shot, and I expect nothing less from an HBO original. I must say that the first episode is probably the strongest. It leads with its best foot, but the show never is really able to get back to that highlight. With that being said, they continuously force flashbacks to further implicate the viewer with knowledge. It's a very questionable decision because it feels unrewarded. The Last of Us is a game that is anywhere between 30 and 40 hours of gameplay, and we don't get much information as to how or why the world is the way that it is. That mystery is what amplifies the execution of the show because it illuminates how alone these people are and how screwed up the society is when half the people don't even know why things are the way that they are. It creates a much darker and ominous outlook on being in the dark with no hope. It also doubles down as to why Ellie is so important. She's a beacon in a black hole. They made some changes to The Last of Us in the show that I couldn't quite follow but I'm not sure if it mattered because they kind of dropped the plotline in the first or second episode.
Logistically for the show, we just knew people would be kind of wiser to how these things operate, so we wanted to make sure we've done our research and we're as scientifically grounded as possible. Just again, because people are more savvy to how pandemics work and how the government and society can react at large.
And that was the hive mind aspect, which is significantly more detrimental in live action than it would be in the video game. I did enjoy Joel's love interest, Tess, a little bit more in the live action than I did in the game, and that's quite surprising.
Tess was a character that we did quite a bit of expansion on, and there's quite a few differences.
The actress brought a wonderful touch of warmth to the show. One of the best aspects of the show that unfortunately never gets off the ground is the action-adventure aspect of it. Walking from decrepit buildings to overgrown plants inside business establishments is really the beautiful aspect of the game. How nature, although suppressed as far as mankind goes, still finds a way to thrive. The way light glints off water droplets in hallways, or the way the buildings seem to want to reconstruct themselves with paint peeling and doors being crowded with shrubbery and nonsensical holdings of the past occupants, is a visual treat. But that's largely ignored in the series. There are a few places in which they stop and talk, but the game just has this way of letting you explore the ruins. I do understand that might have been an issue as far as getting the show wrapped up, but overall, I felt it contributed to the detriment of the show. It made me feel so boxed in. And while the game is linear, it grants you a lot of freedom. And I felt this didn't translate very well to live action. The Clicker. The Clicker was phenomenally realized in its horror-ridden appeal. Taller, funkier, mutating, and lifeless all at the same time. It lumbers and snaps simultaneously. It was a marvelous and well-rounded executed scene.
And there was an actor by the name of Misty Lee who made this one sound when Derek and I were in the stage with her. And we were like, whoa, 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 that's it, keep doing that.
There weren't many clickers in the show, which I didn't have a problem with. They're not that common in the game. It's all wound into the theme of dread and fear.
How do we capture that? Because that's more interesting than just creating the monster.
These are a lot of our very early concepts and busts. We're following real reference and real nature of real fungus and real mushrooms.
Overall, I quite enjoyed The Infected. My biggest issue is there weren't enough of them. It just seemed as though there were episodes without any infected. Either they were everywhere or they were nowhere, and that doesn't fit the ethos of the game.
So did they.
The scariest component of the video game is that no matter what corner you turn or who you're engaged with, you can be immediately overrun and attacked by these forgotten people. I can't give enough credit to those who brought these 2D characters into 3D life. It was a significant achievement, one they should be proud of. Everything from the flashlights to the reloading to the distant, disfigured, shadowy, murky character in the background was spot on.
Never have friends, because there are no friends to be had.
Oh, I've actually been talking to a nice woman on the radio.
You what?
I must say the interrelationship between Bill and Frank was tremendous. I love how these unlikely human beings came together and shared parts of their lives that others were missing, from warmth to rage.
Murray and Nick formed this perfect relationship as actors. It's astonishing.
You there?
It was well acted, beautifully filmed, but I feel it's the biggest issue I have with the series. We don't get a lot of time with Joel and Ellie, and as the series goes on, we get less and less time with them, and it seems to accelerate at blistering speeds.
With Bill, we're trying to show what happens to somebody when they have to survive on their own. So you can kind of see in the conversation that he's hinting that there's traps that he's set up, and you'll get to see some of that in gameplay. But we really want to reflect what can happen to someone's mind where they're just alone without other people to interact with.
Oh, anything sprouting?
Frank.
Who the hell's Frank?
He was my partner.
Give me one more good day.
For some reason, they decided to spend more time with this couple than is even remotely close to what happens in the game, and it's a very disappointing decision. If anything, this should have been a miniseries. Give these two individuals 6 episodes and go to town.
Every time we add a new character, we really ask ourselves, is this necessary? What can this character add to the story? And then what can this character add to the gameplay space? But ultimately, what is this character telling us about Joel and Ellie and their relationship?
But we're here to see Joel and Ellie. And in the end, once everything is said and done, their story doesn't even really directly affect Joel and Ellie as it does in the game.
Look what I found. It's got some juice in it.
That's my battery. That fucking asshole. Get out. Get out.
Okay.
To whomever, but probably Joel. I figured I fell under whomever. Came with this.
It's a very confusing sequence of events, beautifully shot and emotionally driven, but completely misplaced. And I think the show suffered significantly because of it. The writers of the show decided to provide us with factions and organizations that are left out of a 30-hour game. It just absorbs so much space. I don't have a major issue with this faction, the actors, or the reason behind it, other than the fact that it directly is stealing from the reason why I'm watching the show. Nobody on the planet tuned in to see Fedra in its political disorganized economy. Literally no one.
Is this necessary?
And whereas I do slightly enjoy the way it's written and acted, it gives me Fear of the Walking Dead vibes. It's just thrown into the show and ultimately dilutes it. Henry and Sam, and I thought it was well done. It had a serious sense of weight to it. It was well acted. I thought the characters had strong motivations, but they also seemed very edgy and unstable. I enjoyed that the most. Most importantly, it was intricately interwoven with Joel and Ellie's story. And it's an interesting reflection on how lucky Joel and Ellie are that they get to see each other to the end of the story, and how damaging the loss of a loved one could be, or more importantly, somebody you're looking after can be. This is where we get the DNA joke between Joel and Ellie, and it's a great feature of the show.
Did you know diarrhea is hereditary?
What?
Yeah. It runs in your genes.
I do believe that this should be the show and not just a feature of the show. I just can't get over how limited the positive interactions between Joel and Ellie are. I can't skip over how great episode 5 was. It captures the authentic tone, the moments of neutrality that are so brief, you want them to last forever. You soak them in, you enjoy them, you smile at them, you embrace them. But in typical Last of Us fashion, it ends abruptly with horror, blood, and dismemberment. The show is no different, but still the greatest representation of what Last of Us is about. They could literally do a whole season focusing on this type of storytelling. And I think fans would be tremendously grateful. It would also get all the awards I'm sure they're hoping for. This is the episode where Ellie grows up and realizes that she can't save everybody, thus beginning her descent into madness. The biggest pain point the show has produced is easily the fact that they disclosed why Ellie is immune. That completely and ironically ruins the randomness of the show. The fact that Ellie is one of a kind and nobody knows why, she's a saint, pure of heart, and an active ingredient to the cure for humanity is essentially the mystery. Explaining it diminishes her uniqueness and makes her seem more ordinary. Knowing why she's immune strips the story of one of its key mysteries. The Last of Us thrives on mystery. It was very baffling that in 60 hours of gameplay, they never even alluded to it. Yet in the first 9 hours of the show, they provided an in-depth flashback. It was jarring and out of place, and ultimately I felt it hurt the mystery that the show has. Somehow it even makes Joel less of a bad guy. The biggest issue I have with the show is that we don't get to see Joel and Ellie really be friends. One of the episodes we see them on the same page, and it's pleasantly delightful.
We were called contractors.
He's a contractor. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we were cool. Everybody loved contractors.
Nice.
It's ripped almost straight out of the game, but then it's gone.
Well, you got a couple of 90-year-olds shitting themselves out there. They say that you leave dead bodies around?
Bella Ramsey is a prodigious, tiny giant with a personality bursting through her threads, and I sincerely appreciate the warrior spirit she brings to her character. But I think that contrasts very poorly with Ellie. Ellie isn't a malicious or evil person. She's a person brought up in a very screwed up world, trying to save everybody and make her life mean something and kick as much ass as she can. But it's not out of vengeance. She's not Batman. I don't know why they made her such a callous and vindictive character. It really bothers me because Ellie represents all that is good. Joel represents all that is bad. And how they screwed that up, I really don't know.
She still has that innocence. She still has that hopefulness. She can still smile despite all the horrible things these characters have experienced. She still have life within her.
It could be something from the comics. Admittedly, I haven't read the comics. I played each game twice, but her rage is not something that I understand at this point in the character's journey. Though something could be said about the fact that she feels abandoned. She comes off almost Jeffrey Dahmer-ish in the way she tortures the infected. It's not something that I enjoyed seeing or remember seeing in the video game. Now, with that being said, as the current character transitions into her adult self, well, let's just say on the passing of someone important to her, I think those will be the shoes that Bella Ramsey fits into quite comfortably. I think that version of Ellie is going to come alive because the compassion in that character is completely flipped. Whereas in part 1, she's 90% compassion and 10% rage. In part 2, she's 90% rage and 10% compassion. I think Bella Ramsey is going to fill those shoes very nicely. But it just seemed weird to see her so angry when Ellie is a very young-spirited, imaginative, playful, and exploratory person. The giraffe scene in the show is not nearly as successful as its counterpart in the game. The reason being, when it went to the blue screen, for whatever reason, it didn't look like the budget was where it needed to be. The Last of Us had some remarkable CGI and blue screens in certain scenes, but for whatever reason in the giraffe scene, it just didn't work. More importantly, with the shifting and alternating angles, the focusing on more of showing you what's going on rather than letting you experience what's going on. Video games like this have interactions that make moments like this more impactful. But in this circumstance, it was mitigated.
Where's it off to? Here, come on, let's go.
Slow down, kiddo.
Come on. Hurry up, come on, come on, come on.
What did I do? I'm gonna get that gun from you, okay? Oh, okay, easy.
It's your fault.
This is nobody's fault.
It's all your fault.
Henry, no. Henry, no!
I remember the show being sad, but I remember in the game being disturbed. Something about how it cut to black. It shook me to my core, and probably one of the heaviest moments I've ever experienced in a video game. This kind of ties into the giraffe scene in terms of how they're making decisions that alter the scene and the mood of the show. It may flow better in the real world, but in the game it's more straightforward, which leads to another point. It's a visual tool when a camera lingers versus a hard cut to black. These things didn't need to be reworked.
Is this necessary?
One of the essential themes of the game is aloofness, being the last of something. Because the series is so condensed, you're constantly running into somebody every episode. This hurts the theme of isolation, detachment. That is the central theme of the series. I know when I played the game, it took hours before actually interacting with human figures or more so other human beings. The sense of detachment with those infected by spores is profound. They almost don't qualify as sentient beings, which reinforces the feeling of aloofness and loneliness. There's no way to engage in the positive interactions with these individuals. The show has you running into somebody or cutting into another storyline so frequently, you almost forget that humanity is a rarity. Whether you see it as a positive or not, I can't understand how seeing the life environment of Joel before D-Day, his relationship with his brother Tommy, his hardworking nature, creates a greater contrast between HBO's Joel and the game's version of Joel. There's definitely more depth in HBO's version of Joel. Whether or not you think that's a positive thing is up to you. Personally, I like seeing the depth of viciousness that the game's Joel had. He might not have been as well-rounded, but the depths of his madness were titanic. One aspect where I think the game is underserved by the exploration of the world's fullness is the thematic music. You get simple strings that signify loneliness, incompletion, and sorrow. HBO's theme is more full and adventurous. It also gives you a working blueprint as to how the spores spread. It serves a purpose and is entertaining, but does seem to have a completely different tone from the game.
When you're adapting something that is an active participation form of art, like a video game, into a passive participation form of art, like watching television, you have to make quite a few changes.
I think Craig Mazin, known for his work on Chernobyl, was not an ideal choice for the format of this story. I do appreciate the catalog that he's produced, which would include Chernobyl, one of the better projects that has ever graced televisions. All credit due there. However, I do think this hire is a bit of a misstep, at least for season 1. That being said, season 2 should not have to deal with so much backstory and flashbacks. But again, these things aren't even in the video game. So whether or not they're going to be spontaneously added to lengthen the story in areas in which we do not need them remains to be seen. With the establishment of these characters, they should be able to get into the groove of the season a lot quicker. Last of Us is one of the greatest stories ever experienced on console, and I think they'll be able to recapture it. The outlook is positive, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little apprehensive for some creative decisions that have been made for this show. Some of the highlights of Last of Us would be the fact that it's an emotional journey that is viewed through a very curious lens. And of course, it's a fantastic shooter, a phenomenal stealth-based game, and it feels really good as far as gameplay goes. But from a story perspective, it really has changed the industry and has supported PlayStation platform in ways that make PlayStation the de facto platform for sensory story-based experiences. That being said, to compare The Last of Us HBO series versus the game right now, the story is incomplete, and there's a lot more available story-wise with there being an additional game on PlayStation. But I would still recommend you play the game. I think the game offers more of an expansive, sophisticated, emotional journey. Even if you spend $100 to $200 on a console, find a $30 game, or even get it on sale, dedicate 30 to 35 hours of your life to it. Even if you don't know how to play the game, the experience is far superior than what HBO has produced. That being said, it's still the greatest live-action game adaptation we have today, but that just speaks volumes for what's possible on PlayStation's platform. Looking at it from the perspective that the show gives you that the game doesn't, the answer is nothing. I think that's why they elongated the prequel and constructed Ellie's immunity. The show doesn't really do anything superior or even on the same level as the game. It's a tough pill to swallow because I have the story with Bill and Frank, and that was a beautiful moment. But as far as the game goes, it doesn't even serve the story at all. So if you remove those aspects, it starts to look very mediocre. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know what you thought of the story. Did you prefer the game or did you prefer the series? Let me know, I'm very curious. Were there any aspects that you thought were better in one than in the other? Thanks for watching this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one.